Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Pom Klementieff, Kieran Gillen, Sean Gunn, Maria Bakalova, Chukwudi Iwuji, forgive me if I said that wrong, Elizabeth Debicki, Will Poulter, Linda Cardellini, Daniela Melchior, Nathan Fillion, and Sylvester Stallone, directed by James Gunn. Now, sorry I'm late for this one, but there was a good reason. But in the meantime, let's get into this movie because I have watched it twice. Like all the Marvel films, I'm gonna plan on maybe repeating watching this, even to the ones I don't like Eternals. So let's see how this goes. We open in a cage filled with raccoons as a mad genius called the High Evolutionary, played by Chukwudi Iwuji, forgive me if I said the name wrong, picks one to become Rocket, returning voice of Bradley Cooper, as he is remembering his past. And while on the planet Nowhere from the first movie, Rocket walks in to steal one of Peter Quill's beers, as Quill, returned by Chris Pratt, has been drinking a lot because of his depression towards Gamora, returned by Zoe Saldana later in the film, as she makes an appearance. And we get introduced to Drax, returned by Dave Bautista, Groot, returning voice of Vin Diesel, Mantis, returned by Pom Klementieff, Nebula, returned by Kieran Gillen, Kroglin, returned by Sean Gunn, and Cosmo the dog, voiced by Maria Bakalova, who was in the holiday special, which I'm not planning on reviewing because it's 45 minutes long. No one once knows what to do about Quill's drinking problem, and I was depressed by this opener of the High Evolutionary picking a raccoon to become the Rocket we all know and love, as we follow Rocket's point of view, which I did like that piece of POV. As all of a sudden he gets attacked by Adam Warlock, played by Will Poulter, and gets him in a coma for most of the movie. And they defeat Adam by Nebula stabbing him, and he suddenly flies away, and we start the flashbacks, which will happen again and again, as he's scared until he meets his new friends, a mice slash rabbit named Floor, a walrus named Teefs, and an otter named Lila, who's voiced by Linda Cardellini, which is kind of funny to me because she was Hawkeye's wife in the previous movies and the Hawkeye TV show, or series, or miniseries, whatever you want to call it nowadays, as they play together and they love each other very, very much, while Aisha, returned by Elizabeth Debicki, deals with the High Evolutionary as he lets Adam out too early, and as he's just a kid, and the Guardians' mission is to keep Rocket alive. In order to do that, they go to Orgoscope, as Nebula calls Gamora behind Quill's back as she joined the Ravagers, led by Stakar, returned by Sylvester Stallone. And Gamora joins the Guardians for this entire movie, I'll say, to save Rocket's life. And I'm liking these characters again, as they're fun to watch with some music and humor that was at times cringeworthy, which I will get there later in the movie. But I'm still shocked to see Stallone in a Marvel film, but after Volume 2 and The Suicide Squad, another James Gunn film, I now get why, because he and James Gunn are good friends, and Adam comes off like a little stupid to me, but he's okay in this movie at best, as Will Poulter didn't bug me as much as he did in where he either plays a bad guy or trying to be a funny, like in We're the Millers, for example, which is a perfect example to describe Adam in this movie. But at best, he's mediocre. And the way Gamora and Nebula grunt at one another was kind of amusing. While in a coma, Rocket dreams of how he became the way he is, thanks to the High Evolutionary, as he shows around the lab. And I'm talking about Rocket. And Rocket is smart while afraid of a giant turtle while it burns, which is pretty sad. This backstory by Rocket is very emotional and sad at best. Back to the story where Gamora makes Quill, Nebula, Mantis, and Drax float in space while they jump around to either Orgorcorp, while Quill brings up a painful speech to Gamora, and as they get in, they get their space uniforms off and to the contamination trash, and they meet Master Karja, played by Firefly's Nathan civilian? And they yell at him and talk about how they have idiots on their team. And the set design was great to look at while an employee is manipulated to fall in love with Drax, which wasn't very funny to me. Quill and Gamora gets the manager, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Yura, played by Daniela Melchior, who was in the second rat catcher from the Suicide Squad, and I'm going to be reviewing her in Fast X next time to get Rocket's files, and we do get a cameo by Jennifer Holland, who's James Gunn's wife in real life, as she triggers the alarm. And the action is pretty exciting in this movie, in my opinion. Master Karja shoots Drax and Nebula while Quill convinces Yura, I don't know what the hell her name is, to help them out, and Gamora, and I can't help but notice is, and by I'm talking about Gamora, is very one note again. But there's a reason she is, because she's living in the past. The Guardians witness how Rocket became the raccoon he is now, but we'll get it in flashbacks later in the movie, while we get Aisha and Adam are with Master Karja, who kills a Ravager, while Gamora was stupid enough to call the Ravagers, and by the Ravagers, I mean that one Ravager who got killed by Adam with Aisha, while Mantis makes Drax talk with Quill, as he talks about how he went number 2 and it looks like a fish, which was very cringeworthy of humor. I'm not really into this crap. And I'm talking about the cringeworthy bad humor, that toilet humor. Let's move on. And Rocket dreams of the High Evolutionary torturing animals while he knew his theory by knowing it worked on him. And this was once again a sad scene, while all the scenes with young Rocket was absolutely emotional. I feel bad for the poor guy. They arrive to counter Earth, which looks like Earth, but with animals as the humans, while a little girl throws a ball to Drax and he throws it at her rather aggressively, and they throw rocks at them until Groot grows giant briefly, and Quill helps a woman out and explains their friend is dying, and they're looking for someone called a High Evolutionary, and she points out where he's at to grab a key, and when Nebula has trouble with the car is when Quill drops the one PG-13 F-bomb, which is a first for the MCU, I'll say, as they go to the place where the High Evolutionary is at, while Gamora briefly visits Rocket and plays with music extra loud. And when we get to the High Evolutionary, and the camera was going in circles, when I saw this on IMAX the first viewing, it made me a little dizzy, as Quill, Groot, and Nebula get to the building and Nebula stays outside, while Quill and Groot visit the High Evolutionary, and we get a flashback with Rocket knowing the High Evolutionary will keep all the animals in cages, and Rocket grabs a key to get out of there along with Lila, Teefs, and Floor, until Lila gets shot by the High Evolutionary, and Rocket screams out of sadness, and out of sadness he scratches the High Evolutionary's face and kills a couple of his minions. And Teefs and Floor are killed as well, which made me very emotional, as like I said before, and I'll say it again, I felt bad for Rocket at this point in the movie, but fortunately, he gets out of a ship. With a ship, Drax punches a guy out of a motorcycle to save Quill and Groot, while Quill and Groot got people alerted of Quill's aggression. Meanwhile, Gamora hears the alarm while going to the restroom, which was unnecessary, sure. And a war pig, who's voiced by Judy Greer, why is she here? Maybe because she didn't get a role in the last Ant-Man movie, trying to take Rocket back to the High Evolutionary, until Adam comes in distracting War Pig, which I didn't realize that was Judy Greer's voice at the time. And Gamora helps Rocket out and brings the ship to Quill and Groot while they're fighting the High Evolutionary, as they get another guy to the ground, and Drax and Mantis were stupid enough to abandon the ship to come to Nebula and the High Evolutionary, escaping by taking off, making the planet explode. And Adam does kill Aisha out of rage because he knows she's a murderer. And these seeds worked for kick-ass reasons. Drax opens the flying ship to get him, Mantis and Nebula in the ship with cages filled with children, while Quill and Groot get on the ship and they have a thing to cure Rocket, and it almost kills him as he sees the light and almost goes to it until Lila tells him it's not his time to die, and it wakes him up, and thank God he's not dead by the end of the movie. And it shocked me in a great way, I'll say, because the trailers told me he was going to die. But at the end of the day, I'm going to spoil this now. He doesn't die when credits are done rolling. And that made me happy in a delightful way. The High Evolutionary tells Quill to bring Rocket to him, and he refuses and calls on Kraglin. And Cosmo, getting called on while playing cards, with every creature in Nowhere, including Howard the freaking Duck, to help them out, while Nebula and Mantis scare the kids, and Drax cheers them up by acting like a questionable monkey and speaking Jube Jube, which was funny in an odd kind of way. Quill leads an army against the High Evolutionary to fight him, and his ship, while Adam wakes up and Rocket and Groot barge at the bad ship and almost get killed until Drax, Mantis, and Nebula come in with the monster from Volume 2 at the beginning, the ones that eat batteries, with Mantis taking to those creatures as Quill and Gamora landing on the ship of the High Evolutionary, while Rocket and Groot take a rough landing, and Kroglin finally using the arrow and gets to be a professional at it, which is about time, I'll say. And I did like that moment of the film while Cosmo squishes a bad guy with her powers, which is telekinesis. And Kroglin tells Cosmo she's a good doggy because earlier we're talking about how she was a bad doggy. Not that was earned by now, the fact that he calls her a good doggy. The Guardians of the Galaxy get a group of kids along with a reluctant Gamora and fight some of the High Evolutionaries minions and kill them all, which was a hell of a lot of fun. The Guardians get all the children out with Adam fainting, and Quill gets a shield down to help get everyone on the good ship, while Nebula takes control of the ship and Cosmo uses her telekinesis to hold the ship steady, while Adam asks Groot why is he helping him, and he says in his I am Groot language, everyone deserves a second chance. And Rocket decides to help out all the animals get to the good ship, as Rocket realizes he is a raccoon after looking at some baby raccoons, and that was earned too, because it was about time, as the High Evolutionary beats up on Rocket with his force field, and the Guardians defeat the High Evolutionary as we see his scratched up face, and spares the enemy, and that reminded me of Colossus's monologue in Deadpool 1 and 2, I'll say. And Quill tries to get out of the bad ship as he floats in space and almost dies until Adam saves his life. It says, did that look cool? Which was a joke that came up again and again, I'll say, which has been quoted, like I said, as Adam joins the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we're back to Nowhere, or on Nowhere, as Gamora goes back to the Ravagers, while Quill believes Gamora that's there now isn't so bad, and Quill tells the Guardians he's going back to Earth, and Mantis tries to discover what she wants, and Nebula runs the planet of Nowhere, while Quill makes Rocket the captain of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we get Groot saying, I love you guys, which was quite the reveal in a great way. And as Quill is back on Earth, he sees his grandfather Jason is still alive, and while Mantis goes with the creatures and everyone else parties on Nowhere, and the climax was quite a fun, good time, as the credits rolled to a mid-credits scene of Captain Rocket with the fully grown Groot, Kroglin, Adam, Cosmo, Phyla-Vell, and Blurp are the new team of the Guardians of the Galaxy about to fight something giant, which was an awesome scene with Come and Get Your Love playing in the background, as this is a perfect way to say goodbye to some of the characters and hello to the new Guardians of the Galaxy. And one more after credit scene is Quill and Jason having cereal and reconnects with his grandfather, and with some words saying the legendary Star-Lord will return, and I'm wondering what will happen next for him, like if Chris Pratt will play this character again, which I hear he's not going to, but we'll see, as I guess we'll see where the future takes us. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 8.8 out of 10. Not as good as the first volume, but better than the second volume, as I enjoyed being around these characters as well as this music. Despite Adam was mediocre at best, as Will Poulter gave me the idea of the character he played at War of the Millers, but not as stupid as in that film. And the movie left me emotional at times for the reasons that I am an animal lover, except for coyotes. Those things are evil. But I survived both viewings without crying about crying about it. But I got emotional at best. I do like the second decorations as it looks fantastic while the action is pretty exciting in an emotional way. While once again, Gamora is very one note, and there was a good reason for that, in my opinion. The jokes were at times funny and cringeworthy, and the plot is very sad at times, and to the point it was, like I brought up a couple of times, very emotional. And the action scenes were kick ass, so I'm giving this a strong recommendation, as this is second best compared to the original, in my opinion. So I'd like to thank you guys for coming back with me to the Avengers series, and until whenever we get to Secret Invasion or the Marvels, Avengers Assemble!